expanses of solid granite and braved some of the most dangerous working conditions imaginable. Chinese workers did what was widely considered at the time to be impossible. They endured scorching summer heat in the high altitudes, dirt and choking dust, smoke, and fumes from the constant use of explosives. They survived isolation, desiccating winds and thin air, winter blizzards and freezing temperatures, as well as the ever-present dangers of accidental explosions, falling trees, snowslides, avalanches, cave-ins, illness, broken limbs, and plain exhaustion. All to realize the federal government's great ambition of uniting the American continent with a central artery. These workers, in no short order, helped solidify the westward future of the United States. As a reflection of this Herculean feat, the engravings on the legendary and ceremonial Golden Spike that symbolically united the rails of the Central Pacific and Union Pacific Railroads hailed the Transcontinental for bridging the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, reducing to 1 week what had been a perilous 3 to 6 month journey, and healing the wounded nation. The Civil War had ended 4 years earlier, practically to the day, leaving a trail of destruction and a fractured union in its wake. "May God continue the unity of our country," read the engraving on one side of the Golden Spike, "as this railroad unites the 2 great oceans of the world." The Chinese had played a heroic and indispensable role in this achievement, and Strobridge, who had played a leading role of his own in the project, now honored them for their enormous contribution. Strobridge had come far, not just in distance from Sacramento, where the CPRR's work began, but in his attitudes as well. 5 years earlier, he had strenuously opposed the proposal to hire Chinese workers. He argued with his boss, Charles Crocker, one of the so-called Big Four, along with Leland Stanford, Collis Huntington, and Mark Hopkins, who served as directors of the CPRR, that the Chinese were not fit physically or temperamentally for the demanding work. Strobridge eventually relented, and Chinese, a few at first, and then by the thousands, joined the construction effort, proving themselves not just entirely capable, but vital. In time, they caused Strobridge to correct his error and drop his prejudice. Hung Hua, for his part, had begun working for the CPRR in January 1864, after traveling to America from thousands of miles away in southern China. At Promontory, he was in his mid-30s, slightly older than most of the other Chinese, who were in their teens and 20s during construction, prime working ages for physical labor. He had received some education before coming to the United States and had a head for business, not to mention ambition. Before Chinese were hired onto the CPRR, he was a prominent figure in Auburn, a town in the heart of the California gold country in the Sierra Nevada foothills. Agents of the CPRR turned to him to recruit workers, and he eventually became the leading Chinese headman over hundreds and possibly thousands of his compatriots working for the railroad. He handled their pay, living arrangements, and relations with the company. He had also survived years of personal difficulty and dangerous work, all the way through to the end. Strobridge's invitation to Hung Hua at Promontory suggests they had developed a mutually respectful relationship, but it had not been easily forged. Strobridge was a demanding and intimidating supervisor who had earned a reputation for being especially tough on Chinese. He was as ferocious in appearance as in temperament. An errant explosion early in the construction effort had taken out one of his eyes, and an ominous black eye patch now covered an ugly scar. The Chinese railroad workers, in their lingo, called him one-eyed bossy man. Now, Hung Hua and several other Chinese workers, possibly Ging Cui, Wang Fuk, and Li Shao, who had been part of the crew that had laid the last ties and length of track earlier in the day, found themselves not only inside Strobridge's personal car, but also, probably for the first time in their lives, in close proximity to important white men. Perhaps Strobridge hoped that including the Chinese in his private event would make up for their absence in the public activities. Chinese had not been invited to attend the official proceedings, pose for Russell's historic photograph, or join the elite